In the dim glow of a forgotten room, the gentle hum of a film reel fills the air. Dust particles drift lazily, caught in the faint light of an old projector. A hand, steady and deliberate, slides a reel into place. The label reads Suria Film, the name that echoes with both reverence and mystery among cinephiles. The wheel begins to turn, its rhythmic clicks syncing with the narrator's voice, soft yet resolute. This is more than just a film, the voice begins. It's a legacy buried under time, a masterpiece that never saw the light of day. The narrator pauses, as if allowing the gravity of those words to settle. What you're about to witness is the work of Suria, the filmmaker who dared to rewrite the rules of storytelling, only to have his vision silenced. Until now, faint images begin to flicker on the screen. A sepia-tone montage plays, an old cinema bustling with life, black and white clippings of actors on set, and fleeting glimpses of Suria himself, always with a camera in hand, his face partially obscured by shadows or angles. The narrator continues, decades ago, Suria's work challenged not just art, but authority. He wasn't just a filmmaker, he was a revolutionary. And this reel was his final act of rebellion. The room on the screen transitions to a sprawling archive, its shelves groaning under the weight of forgotten reels and decaying artifacts. The soundscape deepens, as if the weight of history is palpable in the air. The narrator speaks again, their tone laced with intrigue. For years, rumors surrounded this film. Some called it his magnum opus, others whispered of a conspiracy to erase it. But no one ever truly knew what Suria Film held until now. The film begins to play, its visuals distorted by time and decay. Burn marks and scratches race across the screen, but behind the damage lies a story aching to be told. Vivid colors seep into the sepia tones, shifting the mood. The narrator's voice becomes quieter, almost reverent. This isn't just art, it's defiance captured on celluloid. Each frame feels alive, pulsing with meaning, as if Suria himself is speaking through it. The images are hypnotic, sweeping landscapes, abstract patterns, and cryptic symbols that beg for interpretation. A recurring shot of the sun, burning fiercely, dominates the reel. The sun, the narrator muses. A symbol of hope or destruction? Suria was never one to explain his work, only to let it speak for itself. The film glitches momentarily, a jarring break in the rhythm. The narrator interjects, their voice tinged with anticipation. And yet, within these frames lies a message that has waited decades to be heard. The truth, hidden in plain sight, is waiting to be uncovered. The projector's hum deepens as the reel picks up speed. The story has only just begun. The film unspools, revealing a kaleidoscope of surreal imagery. A barren landscape stretches endlessly, its horizon split by a sky ablaze with unnatural hues. Abstract patterns shift and flow, merging with fleeting glimpses of figures moving through the scene. There are no faces, only silhouettes cast against the backdrop of a sun that burns too brightly, dominating the frame. The narrator's voice cuts through the silence, deliberate and reflective. This is no ordinary narrative, they begin. Suria's genius lay in his ability to weave meaning into the abstract. Every frame, every movement, every shadow is deliberate. It demands interpretation, yet refuses to be confined to a singular explanation. The visuals grow more vivid. A bird trapped in a golden cage, its wings beating furiously. The cage crumbles, and the bird soars upward, only to vanish into the sun. Freedom, the narrator says softly. The cost of it, the pursuit of it, Suria's work always returned to this theme. But freedom, in his eyes, was never simple. It was messy, chaotic, and often unattainable. The film's imagery shifts again, this time to a crumbling cityscape. Towering structures collapse in slow motion, their debris transforming into flowers as it hits the ground. A metaphor for renewal, the narrator continues. Destruction as a means to create something new. Suria wasn't just telling a story, he was reflecting his reality. A world where institutions were breaking, Yet something better remained just out of reach. The focus shifts momentarily to a handwritten note that appears mid-frame, scrawled in an elegant but hurried script. They cannot silence what lives in the soul. The narrator's voice lowers, tinged with awe. This single frame speaks volumes. Suria knew the risks he was taking. He wasn't just creating art. He was defying those who sought to control it. The act of making this film was an act of rebellion in itself. As the reel progresses, fragments of dialogue emerge from the crackling audio. The voices are distorted but evocative, repeating phrases like "truth buried in the light" and "find what they hide." The narrator pauses, allowing the weight of the words to settle. This was never meant to be understood in a single viewing. It's a puzzle, a code left behind for those willing to decipher it. The damage to the reel becomes more apparent as it continues. Frames stutter and burn, and sections are missing entirely. These imperfections tell a story of their own, the narrator remarks. Was this sabotage? Or simply the decay of time? Either way, the missing pieces add to the enigma, forcing us to imagine what might have been lost. The recurring image of the burning sun reappears, now larger and more oppressive. Beneath its glow, a figure emerges, a lone silhouette standing defiantly against the light. Here, Suria's message becomes personal, the narrator explains. The figure represents all of us, facing a force greater than ourselves, yet refusing to be consumed by it. The reel begins to distort again, the imagery fading into an ambiguous haze. The narrator's voice takes on a quiet urgency. What you've seen so far is only the surface. Beneath the art lies the truth Suria risked everything to share. But to uncover it, you must look deeper. The projector hums steadily, the story continuing to unfold. The film story begins to take shape, its fragmented imagery coalescing into a vision that is both haunting and profound. A sprawling city emerges, draped in shadows and silence, its streets empty except for flickering lamplights. Through this void moves a lone figure, their face always obscured, their movements deliberate. The narrator's voice, measured and thoughtful, guides the audience. This is the heart of Suria's message, the voice explains. A world silenced, stripped of its color, where art and expression have been banished. Yet even in this desolation, there exists resistance, a defiant whisper against the roar of oppression. The figure stops at a blank wall, its surface unbroken. Slowly, they lift a brush dipped in vivid red paint and begin to create. Sweeping strokes fill the screen, abstract patterns that evoke fire, chaos, and life. The narrator speaks softly, as if not to disturb the act. Creation in the face of destruction. Art as rebellion. This is the core of Suria's vision, a belief that even in the darkest times, the human spirit cannot be silenced. As the figure paints, the city itself begins to change. Buildings crumble, their rigid lines softening into flowing forms. Statues and monuments, once symbols of authority, fracture and dissolve, replaced by untamed growth, vines, flowers, and trees rising from the ruins. This is transformation, the narrator continues. The old order falling apart, giving way to something raw and unrestrained. Suria wasn't just critiquing society. He was imagining a world reborn. A burst of light overtakes the screen, transitioning to a vivid landscape, a rolling field under an unrelenting sun. The same figure stands alone, holding a small object that glints in the harsh light. It is a mirror, cracked and tarnished, yet still reflective. They lift it slowly, directing its beam toward the sun. The narrator's tone shifts, filled with quiet intensity. A mirror against the sun, a futile gesture, or a symbol of defiance. Suria leaves us no clear answers, only questions. He wanted his audience to engage, to wrestle with meaning rather than passively absorb it. The screen fills with a rapid montage of faces, all obscured or turned away, their features never fully revealed. The narrator speaks again, now more reflective. The faceless figures remind us that this is not one person's story. It's everyone's. It's yours. It's mine. Suria's work was never about the individual. It was about the collective struggle, the shared desire for freedom and truth. The pace of the film quickens, the imagery becoming chaotic. Fire consuming buildings, waves crashing against cliffs, birds scattering into the sky. Interspersed are flashes of handwritten notes, barely visible. Art is the truth they fear. The sun will rise, no matter how they try to extinguish it. The narrator pauses, their voice carrying the weight of understanding. These fragments are Suria's manifesto, hidden within his work. He knew his film might never be seen, so he embedded his beliefs into every frame. A final act of defiance, left for those who would one day uncover it. The burning sun reappears, growing larger, filling the screen until it is all-consuming. The figure stands before it unmoving, their silhouette dwarfed by the overwhelming light. The narrator speaks, their voice almost a whisper. To stand before the sun is to face truth in its purest form. It burns, it blinds, yet it also illuminates. Suria understood this paradox. He wanted us to feel it, to live it. As the reel nears its end, the screen fades to black. A single line of text appears, handwritten and delicate. The light is eternal, even if the messenger is not. The narrator's voice breaks the silence one last time, resolute and clear. This is Suria's legacy. Not just a film, but a message to the future. A reminder that no matter how deeply truth is buried, it will always find its way to the surface. The reel clicks to a stop, leaving the story suspended in the minds of its audience. The screen remains dark, the hum of the projector fading into silence. The narrator's voice returns, quieter now, contemplative. What remains after the light fades? The echoes of a story, the fragments of a vision. Suria's work was never about answers, it was about questions. Questions that linger long after the reel stops turning. The imagery returns, soft and subdued, showing a series of still frames from the film. The burning sun, the defiant silhouette, the cracked mirror reflecting its fractured light. Each frame feels deliberate, like pieces of a puzzle yet to be solved. The narrator continues, these images, these moments, they stay with you. Not because they are clear, but because they are incomplete. They demand thought, reflection, interpretation. This was Suria's gift to us, a film that refuses to be forgotten. A montage follows, interweaving modern scenes of protests, street art, and quiet acts of rebellion with the imagery from Suria Film. The connections are subtle, yet unmistakable. Even now, the narrator says, his work speaks to a world still struggling with the same questions. What does it mean to be free? To create without fear? To speak when others demand silence? The focus shifts to archival footage, grainy clips of Suria himself, seen through the lens of history. His movements are deliberate, his gestures filled with purpose, yet his face remains obscured. The narrator's tone becomes reverent. He understood that his work might not survive, that the forces he challenged would try to erase him. But Suria never sought immortality. He sought truth. And in doing so, he became timeless. The film's final frames replay, slowed to emphasize their impact. The silhouette against the sun, the transformation of destruction into creation, and the lingering image of the handwritten note. The light is eternal. The narrator pauses, their voice filled with quiet determination. This wasn't just a film. It was a beacon, a call to those who would come after, to continue the work he could not finish. As the projector clicks to a halt, the silence feels heavy, as if the weight of the story still lingers in the air. The narrator's voice returns one final time, reflective yet resolute. Suria understood something profound, that stories, no matter how fragile, have the power to endure. Even in darkness, they find a way to illuminate. And in that light, we find ourselves. The screen fades to black once more, but the narrator's words linger. Perhaps that is the true legacy of Suria Film, not just the art itself, but the way it inspires us to look deeper, to question more, and to create fearlessly in the face of opposition. A reminder that while messengers may fade, their light continues to shine. A soft glow returns to the screen, revealing the words, "The legacy lives on." The narrator speaks their final line, quiet but firm, as if passing a torch. Now it's your turn. The story ends, but its echo remains.